Hey everyone, Sam here at Model Chili Scale Models, back with a Star Wars kit, this time AMT's Havoc Marauder from the Bad Batch in 1:144 scale. And this is a stolen shuttle from the Old Republic, so although it kind of looks Imperial, it predates the Empire of course, but I thought this would be quite a nice chance to do some painting, and looking at the show, the surface is quite weathered and battered, so it should present a nice painting challenge. And as you can see, it's got movable wings, a nice standard polar lights base there, and you can have it flying all with the landing gear down and have it landed, of course. The back of the box there. Alright, so let's have a look inside the box. So there's the base, metal rod for the stand, coloured clear parts. So you've actually got two different options for the main view screen, and then the engines either red or blue depending on what flavour you want. So two bags, plastic there for all the main hull parts, instruction sheet, and the decals. So just getting a closer look at some of this plastic here. Quite a lot of flash on the sprue there, but on the parts pretty good. Yeah, the detail's not as crisp as I've seen in other kits, especially Bandai. Of course, is always the frame of reference. But as an AMT kit, you expect a certain balance between price and quality. There's certainly plenty of detail, especially on the wings. Top of the hull there, and quite thick plastic, but I think it should go together quite well. So what I'm going to do is remove all of the pieces, clean them up, and then start construction. Now with all of the parts separated, I'm just going around and cleaning up some of these edges with a file. Right, so for the next step I'm going to do all of the main construction just to make painting a lot easier. And the only tricky part is just going to be installing the front windows, which need to be pre-installed from the back before you put it together. So I'm going to attach that, and then I'm just going to have to mask off the two windows so I can paint the rest. But thankfully all of the other clear pieces, the engines and the back turret, you attach after it's all put together, so that should be a lot easier. So these side parts head to that seam really nicely. There's no gaps at all. Those fit together really well. As you can see, there's still just a tiny little bit of mould flash cleanup to do, but I'll worry about all of that once everything's been put together and I get a better idea about what to clean up. Right, so that's all of the main construction complete, and I've just dry fitted the top panel and the wings on just to remove them for painting, but these need to be not glued anyway so they can still move up and down. And yeah, everything went together really well. There's no major gaps or issues. There's just one small gap at the back, at the top of the turret piece, there where it meets the hull. I can just fill that in with a bit of plastic putty, but no other problems, and it's come out to be quite a nice, sizable ship. Looking pretty cool. So the next step is to start priming. So I've just roughly masked out where the windows are, and I'm not going to cut back the excess, just because I think it'll be a little bit difficult to get the perfect line through that tape. So I'm just going to leave that, spray over it, and then just hand paint close to the window once it's all done. Alright, so finally starting to prime. I'm going to use Vallejo Surface Primer. Now this is gloss black. I usually use matte black or just standard black surface primer, but black Vallejo is impossible to get in Christchurch at the moment, so I'm stuck with this for now. And now for the base coat, I'm going to use Vallejo Model Air Light Blue. Alright, so the next step is to try and recreate all of the intricate panel lines that you can see all over the ship in the show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a mix of the original base paint, the light blue, and add in a few drops of seaplane grey. I just wanted a generic dark grey just to darken it up a little bit. And then I'm going to spray over using a bit of plastic card that I have left over, and just spray it against the corner and just create a negative impression, like a stencil, all over the ship to create some lines. And I'm just using this instead of masking tape because it's just a lot quicker and sort of free form, so I don't have to faff around with tape. Alright, so that's that first layer done. And so that's a really effective and quick way to lay down some panels, especially if they don't need to be too precise. But you can see some definition where it lays down the card, and you can overlap, going over just to create darker shades and just a little bit more randomness to the pattern. So now I'm going to repeat the same step but with a lighter colour, and I'm just using Russian Air Force Grey, which is just a generic lighter grey. And I'm going to do that again, but probably a little bit less with this colour. And there's the light grey panelling done. Pretty happy with it so far. So now comes a bit of a bravery test. I'm going to do another layer of panelling using this greyish blue, which is close to the sort of teal colour that you see all over the ship in the show. It's mainly confined to like weathering and dry brushing, but I think a few of these panels in this colour might go towards looking more like the animated version. So I'm just going to try a couple of panels, see if I need to continue or abort. And I think actually that looks pretty good, so I'm going to carry on. Right, so that's all of the airbrush panelling complete, and I may have gone slightly overboard with the light blue, as I suspected I would, but I'm just going to finish all the weathering and all the detail painting before I worry about it too much, because it might just start to tone it down once I apply a wash, paint on all the panels, and yeah. But I kind of like how it looks so far. So the next step is to start painting all of the different coloured panels as indicated by the painting guide. Yeah, just around the ship. And I'll just brush paint those on. And so here I've just quickly masked up some panels because I got sick of brush painting everything, so carefully just spraying these darker grey. And for the wings I've just roughly masked out the edges because there's quite a lot of complex jagged corners around here, and it's just going to be really fiddly to mask everything perfectly, so this is the lazy way to do it. And then once that's sprayed, I'll just go in with a brush and then just paint up to the edge to finish it off. Alright, so that's pretty much all of the panelling and detailing done. And so before I move on to a wash and a dry brush, I'm going to coat the model in Tamiya TS13 clear. So there's the clear coat down, and that just adds a nice protective layer from all of the other steps I'm about to do. The first of which is going to be a custom wash. So I'm going to make the wash out of the base colour, the light blue. So I've made a custom wash just by mixing the base colour of light blue with a few drops of black paint and then thinned with water, just to give a darker, slightly darker version of the base colour. Because I don't want this to be too overpowering, I just want it to be nice and subtle, just to bring out some definition in some of these raised pieces. So yeah, that sort of effect there. Could probably do with just a little bit slightly darker. So I'm just going to apply this all over the ship. Just want to keep to most areas, but I'm not going to do a whole complete coverage. And the good thing with the clear coat spray is that I can clean this up once it's dry with a bit of acrylic thinner. Right, so that's the wash all cleaned up, and it's moving slowly to that really kind of streaky brush painted look that the ship has in the Bad Batch. There's the underside, so it's looking quite a bit more grimy. So what I'm going to do now is just finish some of the detail painting that I missed. Also, I need to apply the decals, so I'm going to need to take off the masking tape. So I'm really not sure about these decals. They're supposed to cover the entire front section of the cockpit there, as you can see in here. But there's quite a few gaps that just doesn't quite fit. The angles are all wrong, and they kind of meet at a point. Right down here, it's supposed to be parallel with this central section. So I don't like these at all. So I think I'm just going to paint that bit there. And this red stripe decal was just one decal, and if I was to leave it as one piece, it would have just sat in these recessed areas at each side, which would have made it completely disappear. So I sliced it in half, and I'm just going to put the red stripe just on the edge of this raised central bit, just so at least you can see them. And so there's the black sections painted there. I didn't really want to bother trusting the rest of the decals, so I just painted the whole thing, well, all of the black pieces. So now it's time to move on to a little bit of dry brushing. So I'm just going to use some lighter and darker colours, and wiping off most of the paint on a paper towel. So this is a lighter grey. Just going to brush on the panels around the ship. Just to try and hopefully bring out a little bit more of the cross-hatching that you see close up on a lot of the textures all over the ship, which would be impossible to recreate at this scale to some of the fine detailing. But just hope to get a little bit close. It's really quite rough in a lot of places when you really start to look at the ship in detail. In some ways this is quite a challenging ship to weather, because it's not like your typical Imperial ship where it's just kind of monolithic grey with a few panels and just a very light touch of weathering, but this has quite a lot of weathering. And the more I study it from screenshots and looking at the show, the more detail I find every single time. And there's also that kind of dilemma of it's an animated show, how much of the detail and the kind of the brush stroke texture is just due to it being an animation, and then what would that look like in reality if it was a real ship? Would it have the same texture? Probably not. But I think I've leaned more towards the animated show appearance for this particular paint job, so I'm just going to stick with that, I think. And there's even quite a bit of scuffing and weathering all over these black panels, which you'd think would be a mistake, especially if you saw a model kit that someone was just being sloppy, but you got to do it, so on it goes. So we've got quite a bit of this light colour. I'm just looking at a screenshot here from the end of season 1 where they've just landed on one of the Camino platforms in daylight, and there's quite a lot of scuffing around here, so on it goes. So I'm basically just sticking to 2 colours for this weathering. The light colour is the light gold grey, and then I'm just applying the base coat of light blue, which appears over the darker and lighter panels, so it shows up in places. And it also helps to tone down the light blue panels that I put, which I think may have slightly been overdone, because most of the teal colour on the ship comes from the weathering, so I think I'll just have to lighten it up a little bit to do that section. So now I don't bother cleaning the brush between colours. I mean, if they mix then that's fine. But now I'm just applying the base colour light blue, just doing a bit more scuffing. It's kind of hard to get this on camera because it's so shiny. It's just reflecting my LEDs. Yeah, it's a bit angle. And not forgetting the fin panel, of course. So moving away from dry brushing, similar to the panels, I'm just going to start dabbing on some of these colours just to indicate the splotches of colour that you see on the ship. So I'm just going to stick to this lighter dull grey, and then once that's done I'll switch to the light turquoise. Alright, so for the turquoise patches, just got some grey, that greyish blue that I used for the light blue panels, lightened it up with a bit of white, and now just going to dab that around. It's quite distinctive weathering on the ship, so and it's kind of all over the place on the ship. I kind of wish I hadn't used that colour for the panels before, because this really would have stood out if I hadn't used it before, but oh well. And then some for the wings. Now looking at screenshots of the ship, now there's quite a distinctive reddish brown panel that covers this entire section here, and it's either very dark red or kind of a reddish brown, I can't quite tell, so I've got some German red brown. I'm gonna mix that with some red and dry brush that on, because again it's a very rough paint application. And just to finish off the painting, I'm going to paint some silver behind where the rest of the clear parts are going to sit. And just when I thought it was all over, I spotted just a few little brown patches of weathering on the wings. So using the same German red brown, I'm just going to put a little bit here and there. Just confining it to where I've already put the lighter colours, because it's quite hard to see over the black. Right, so this is almost complete. I've dry brushed on a few extra dark grey panels both sides. Did another brownish grey panel on this side. There's the silver in the back for the engines. And now just a final few touches. I just need to add just a few little scorch marks of battle damage that I've seen in still frames from the series. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of Tamiya Weathering Master soot. And there's just a couple of prominent marks that I want to add on. So just using a sharp-tipped cotton swab, gather up some of this pigment. And there's a nice big mark across here. A little one up here. Now just going over with a bit of black paint on the brush. Just want to add some lines over the scorching. There, I think I'll leave the battle damage just to those two marks. They're the only major references I've seen just by going over clips of the show. I don't really want to do any more because I know I'll just go overboard and it'll get too much. So I'm just going to leave it with those. Right, so I'm all finished up painting and weathering the ship. All I need to do now is just paint the frames of the engine exhaust with the base colour of the blue-grey, and then attach that to the back, and then to give the entire ship a coat of Tamiya Flat Clear TS80 from a can. And I'll need to mask up the windows, of course, for that. And then finally just attach the rear gunner window where Omega sleeps to the back. This had a decal for the frame, which I sealed in with a gloss clear, and I'll attach that once the flat coat's down. And then I might go over with a brush over the frame with some more flat coat, just to dull that down a little bit. And then I think we'll be done. Alright, so there it is, all done and dusted. And yeah, the project took a lot longer than I thought it would take, mainly just due to the research I needed to find all of the different colours and patterns and panels and weathering, and yeah, so it went together really quickly, construction wise. But yeah, it was just the painting and the weathering that took a lot longer than I thought it would take, mainly just because I just didn't really know what it actually looks like. Reference photos of this thing and good lighting is really hard to find online. So I basically just went back to the episodes and a lot of pausing, a lot of screenshots, just to get all of that accurate information, well, as close as accurate as I could get. The painting guide on the box is actually quite close to the ship as it appears in the show, but it lacks a lot of that finer detail, especially all the weathering. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it came out. Yeah, if I was to do it again, I probably wouldn't do the light blue or the bright blue panels, and then painting all of the darker panels. Once the paneling was done, I probably could have left that just for the dry brushing layer, because a lot of the colours aren't quite as solid as you'd think. Like if you look at them closely on the show, it's really rough and kind of sketchy and almost brush painted. So I probably could have just waited to paint all of the panels in that dry brushing step, but yeah, it was just one of those things to learn as you're building. But I'm really happy with how the weathering came out. The scuffing on the wing panels kind of looks a little bit messy, and looks like I've just got kind of painted fingerprints all over the model, but yeah, it's actually how it looks like in the show, so yeah, pretty happy with that. And yeah, overall, I think it's looking not too bad. Yeah, I think the weathering is pretty much up there with a lot of the Rebel ships, in classic Star Wars at least. It's certainly a lot more beaten up and weathered than a lot of Republic and Imperial ships you see in the films. So yeah, it was quite a challenge, but also really, really fun to finally do all of that rough paneling and the wash and all of the teal turquoise splotches all over it. Yeah, I had a lot of fun at that step. So yeah. So yeah, it was quite enjoyable in the end. And so just getting a closer look at the underside with all of its weathering and paneling. And then the engines at the back and the rear turret blister. So I guess there is kind of one slight flaw in the kit, in that although the wings do move up, they pretty much only move up to that position. And in the show you see it landed, the wings are way fully vertical, and you can't quite bend them that way without dislocating them. So I'm not quite sure why they didn't allow the wings to go that far. So you can't quite have it in the full landed position, which is a shame, but you could probably kind of scratch build your way around that, perhaps. But I'll just be displaying it in flight, so it's no problem really. And just as a side note, if you are planning to build one of these, then be very careful of the cannons and all of the other little prongs around the wings. I knocked into these so many times when handling it and moving it around that I'm amazed I haven't knocked one of these off. But yeah, they do tend to get in the way a lot, especially the guns at the back. So yeah, be careful. Alright, so I think that wraps up this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and if you've got any questions or comments, please leave them below. And thank you for watching. So hope to see you on the next video. Cheers.